Hello everybody. In this video I will show you what's new in XData 4.0 and Sparkle 3.0. Very nice new things and also small things from Aurelius. There's lots of new stuff in this version. Well, the most important thing for TMS Sparkle are the design time components. It's now way easier to create Sparkle server that you are used to when you had Wizard and low-level classes. Now you can use design time red components. First one is HTTP sys dispatcher. It's the wrapper around the HTTP sys class dispatcher that process low-level HTTP requests, but in a design time component way. And then you can add modules, just like you had server modules. You now have server components. For example, static server component, which is equivalent to wraps the tstatic module. It serves static files, HTML files. So, for example, this is the concept. Every server, you have the base URL that you can choose from. There's these suggestions here. 2001/TMS static, for example, and associate to the dispatcher. That's done. In this case of the static server, it asks the root dir to serve files from. So, for example, I have this Notepad++, which has some files, the documentation here, just like a website. If I put the root folder there and set active to true for the dispatcher and run the application, it will serve those files in that folder. If I put the address here, TMS/static, it's now server the files, just like a web server. It's serving the static files from that Notepad++ folder. All right. Well, and then you have more server components. For example, there is a generic server, which wraps the anonymous model. It's just a low-level raw request processor. I can choose a base URL here, /tms/generic, set the dispatcher, and the difference is now it has the on-process request event that I do low-level processing. For example, I can inspect the request through the context.request to know what the client has sent to me, and then I can use context.response to set the HTTP response. For example, I can set status code to 200 OK, set the content type to text/HTML, and set the response to something like a small HTML code here, just like a hello world. If I run now, it should, if I go to the browser, at the address I have chosen, /tms/generic, it will respond with a response. Since it's a generics raw, everything that it's under generic slash will provide the same response. It's up to my code, my low-level code, to check the request and send the proper responses. Well, these are the news for TMS Sparkle, and of course, every model will have a managed middleware list. Every server, I will show you in detail later when I talk about XData. Because XData, going to XData news, it follows the same approach. I also have the XData server component, which wraps the TXData server model that we have used till now. So the same approach, I have to set the base URL. I will set from the root URL for my server, 8000/tms/xdata, and I also have to set the dispatcher. And that's enough. My server should be running here, an empty server, but it's running. There you go. The XData server is responding. Well, we know that XData, it's a REST JSON API server. I can add business logic to it using service operations, where I create server-side methods, add interface implementations. But in the previous versions I have to create that by code. In this version, we have the new wizard from File, New Other. There is this new wizard called TMS XData Service, which will open here for me, and I just named the service. There are small options here for example, add sample methods if I want to learn to test it, and generate interface and implementation in separate units, which is default, which is useful if you are going to use the interface for the client. If I click finish, I see that it's separated two units, one unit for the interface and another unit for the implementation. So in the interface, you can use from the client using the XData client component to call methods. Well, since it added sample methods here because I have chosen it, I can run and test the server methods already, like the sum method here. Here's the implementation, and I can test it from the browser at the address /sample service /sum. I can pass the parameters here, A5 and B10. Here is the sum, 15. All right. And of course, you know that to add new methods, I can simply, since the interface is done, it's very easy to create new methods here. I can create one multiply, for example, adding the interface, implement it here in the implementation, set the result equals to A times B. And if I run, we can see that that new method is already available in my server. Let me change sum by multiply. Here is 5 times 10, 50. All right. So you can move on and create new methods, or you can even create more XData service, ask for a new TMS XData server with another name, new interface, and add server-side methods. But we know that XData can also publish database entities automatically. How to deal with database? Before I had a connection pool. It's now very easy. In the latest last Aurelius version, there is the T Aurelius connection component, which represents an Aurelius connection. I can use FireDAC, UniDAC, etc., or I can use native driver. I will use here SQL Server, connect to a local SQL Server here I have in my computer, choose a database I have, set the authentication, which is operation system, trusted connection, test the connection. My Aurelius connection is connecting, all right. And as we know, XData server needs a pool. Now there is a new component, XData connection pool, which all that it needs is to associate to Aurelius connection. So, and there is the size of the pool, 20 by default. So it will create up to 20 connections based on the configuration set on the Aurelius connection. From the Aurelius connection, it will create a pool of 20 connections. To use the pool with the data server, I just use the pool property and associate with the pool. And that's it. My XData server is now using the connection pool, and if I run it here, well, actually, there's nothing. I could use the pool to the database to implement server-side methods using Aurelius and the pool, but we know that XData server publishes entities automatically. So let's just generate the entities from my database, which is a new feature from TMS Aurelius. From the database, I can simply generate Aurelius classes for my ORM, and I will just publish with XData. In the XData server model, the entities were published automatically. In XData server component, that's not true anymore for security reason. So you come here to default entity set permissions. They are off by default. You just check what you want. For example, I want to list and get entities, and do not allow insert, modify, and delete. But you can also override the default with specific permissions for specific entity sets. For example, for one entity set named customers, I can override the default and say that I want all insert, modify, delete, etc. So you can do that by design time. If I run it, we can see that my server is running, and with all the entities published, I can type /customers to see my customers data. So we all know that you can now, in other videos I show that you can have filtering, ordering, there's a lot of paging, there's a lot of features here for XData, but we already know that. Another design time feature here is that I mentioned is the middleware, manage middleware list, which I can at design time add middleware to my server. For example, the compress middleware to respond compress gzip responses, deflate response. I can add cores, which is useful for REST servers. I can add JSON Web Token middleware, for example, for authentication, which I'm not going to use it here for simplicity, but so I can add middleware at design time. And I can run the server and keep my server running here. And last but not least, for XData, there is a new great feature, which is a generator for a front-end web client using TMS WEB Core for my XData server. It's available here in File, New, Other, TMS Business, and the wizard is TMS XData Web Application. If I choose it, it will ask for a XData root URL server. I can use the one which is running. I put that one in the localhost 8000. I can test the connection. It's running, okay, because it's running here locally. And if I click next here, it will connect to XData server, extracts the entities that it's publishing, and I can simply choose the entities that I want to generate a list form for. So whatever, I just choose whatever I want. And when I click next, it will ask for a folder where the application source code will be generated. And if I click finish here, it will create the source code in the folder. I'm not even saving my XData server here. Here is my TMS WEB Core application, a full TMS WEB Core application generated in that folder that is a front end for the XData server. Let me run here to show you. It uses a bootstrap template responsive to list your to be the front end with paging. This is server side paging. The data was not loaded here in the client. Each click is there is ordering, server side ordering. At each click is a new request to the server. There is I can also search, filter, for example, type here and filter data, and all server side. So anyway, in summary, the web front end is generated automatically from my XData server. It's a way to start your web application in a very fast way. You have this scaffolding here. Soon there will be editing, there will be authentication, user login, and you create a complete web application. And there are two less things for the new components. There is now for TMS Sparkle a new feature to deal with file upload, multi-part data reader. I can use generic server, for example. There is a new class multi-part form data reader, which allows you to get from the client information for the files that the client uploaded and receive that information and save that files easily. I run the application here. This is a sample application with a simple form uploads here, where I choose an email address and choose a file to upload. I can choose a file here to upload and send, and the generic server in Sparkle there will show the information, fill it from in the form, and we will save. We'll get the file content in the specific sample has saved the file in the local folder here. Okay, it's just a new class for handling multi-part form data. Finally, a small new thing for TMS Aurelius, for the ones who use TMS Aurelius, in the TObject Manager class. Let me open the source code here. And the TObject Manager class, we have now the hasChanges method, which will return true if there are any entity in the manager that have their properties modified. So you can test for all entities in the manager, or a specific entity, which asks, has this entity been modified? If I call flush, will it modify the database? So this is a new thing in Aurelius. All right, these are the news for XData. New features for XData Sparkle. It's now very easy to use design time. There is the new generator, web generator, and I hope you have enjoyed it.